Hey guys, Coach Share again. Welcome back to your level 3 video over the volume of a cylinder. Um, Today I'm going to get us started by, I want you to look at your journal. And remember at the beginning of the year we put together and we put in our reference chart at the back of our journal. So if you will open that up, okay, remember you can pause the video at any time. You can rewind it if you need to. Okay, if you get any questions, raise your hand. But real quick, what I need you to do is I need you to open up that journal and go to this reference chart. Because if you look, we have our volume uh, piece here. And we have a volume of a prism, cylinder, pyramid, a cone, and sphere. And for us this year, we'll be touching on cylinders, cones, and spheres in 7th grade AP Math. Okay, so our formulas are all going to be right here. But there's another piece that's going to be very, very important in regards to the volume. Okay, if you notice on majority of them, you have this big B. And if you remember from video 2, level 2, that big B represents area of the base. And the base tends to be a shape of whatever is the bottom of that 3D figure. Okay? And if you look up 2 more sections, we have a section that is nothing but area of all these different shapes. Okay? And so the correlation that I want you to see is that big B represents area of the base, and here's a bunch of different base shapes. Now these formulas say A equals whatever that area formula is. But to make it easier for us, what I want you to do is instead of it saying A equals, I want you to change every single one of these A's to a capital B. Because what that allows us to do is no matter what figure we need to find the volume for, if you can find the base shape of whatever shape that is, then you know what formula is going to go in for that capital B. So for example, we are going to be talking about cylinders today. So let's look real quick. Volume of a cylinder, volume equals big BH. So if you look at your note sheet that you have, we have right here that volume equals big BH. And like I said, a quick refresher, big B represents area of the base. Or you can also call it base area. And H represents height of the figure. And I'll show you a cool way to find that H every single time. So this is our base formula for a cylinder. Now remember, B represents area of the base. So a quick refresher that if we were to take our cylinder and we were to look at it from a top view, we would see a circle. So our base shape is a circle. So we got to figure out what is going to go for this big B. So if I go back to that reference chart real quick and I say, okay, the base shape is a circle, then what I'm going to plug instead of B, I'm going to plug in pi r squared. So that's how we get our formula, pi r squared h. This is the same thing as this over here, but instead of B, we've just plugged in pi r squared. Alright. So, let's go ahead and jump straight into our first example. Okay. Now remember, we are going to do our FSS, so our formula substitute solve. So if we look at this first and foremost, we can see we have a cylinder. So I know that my formula for this is going to be volume equals big B H. Alright, now because we know that we have a circle as our base, we're going to substitute that big B for pi r squared, and then we still have that h to the side. Okay, now another quick refresher, remember if it doesn't tell you to use 3.14, just assume that you need to use pi instead. So we have our pi r squared h. Now we need to go ahead and substitute what we know. So we're keeping it pi. Our radius, remember radius is from the center to the edge of the circle. So we have 3 meters. That is our radius. So we're going to plug in 3 for r. And then our height. We're going to go ahead and use this trick now because you're going to see it, especially when we get to our surface area unit. It's going to become it's going to become in handy. So what I want you to do is called our thumb trick. So you're going to take your thumb, you're going to cover both bases. Now remember, just because we have bottom base, that usually means we have a top base as well. So I'm going to cover my top base, I'm going to cover my bottom base, and once I cover both bases, whatever value is left, that is our height. And so you can see left that we have 6 meters, therefore our height is 6. Now if I wanted to go ahead and just kind of go ahead and simplify, we're going to get 3 squared, which is 9, times 6 times pi. Now we can go ahead and simplify it one more time, because sometimes you might see an answer, you might hear it say in terms of pi. So what that means is that's going to be our simplified version without going into any decimals. And the most simplified we can be without having to round or anything is to go ahead and do 9 times 6. 9 times 6 is 54, and we're left with pi. Now if it was ever said, find your answer in terms of pi, this would be our answer. We have 54 pi's, so our answer is in terms of pi. But let's go ahead and take it another step, and let's go ahead and solve all the way through, and let's round to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go 54. I'm going to hit second, that caret key, which is going to give us that pi. Remember, it's this key right here underneath the clear button. When I hit enter, I get 169.64. Now remember, I want to go to the nearest tenth. So we get 169.6 meters. Now we're talking volume, so our units are always cubed. If we weren't going in terms of pi, we could stop it here and type it in. We could type it in even right here in the calculator and solve, and we'll still get this. But I do want you to realize that right here, this is our answer in terms of pi. Both of these are correct answers. Okay, so now that we've seen that, let's go to our second one. Alright, so notice our shape's laying a little different this time. Does that change the base shape that we have? No. So we're still finding the volume. Since we're finding the volume of a cylinder, we know that that volume is big B, base of the area, times the height. Once again, even though it's on its side, we still know that the base of a cylinder is a circle. So we're going to plug in pi r squared for that B, and it'll always be multiplied times that height. Let's go ahead and substitute the information that we know. Okay, this one, once again, notice it did give us the volume, and we're actually looking for the height. So we're going to substitute our volume, which is 314 inches cubed. We're going to go ahead and use pi. We know our radius. Well, did they give us a radius? So this line goes all the way through the center to the other edge. This is our diameter. Remember, a diameter is double the radius, so all we have to do is cut this in half. We know that our radius is 5 squared, and we still don't know our h. Okay, so this is going to go back to our equation solving days. Okay, we're just going to go through, we're going to simplify. The easiest thing to simplify right now would be this 5 squared. So I'm going to have 314 equals pi times 25h. Alright, so I want to get h by itself, and even though pi looks like a symbol, pi is technically a number, so we can do 25 times pi, but I don't want to have to do any rounding just yet. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get h by itself by dividing both sides by pi 25, or 25 pi, however you want to write it. This allows this to cancel out, leaving me with that h, and now I just have 314 divided by 25 pi. So if I was to go ahead and go here and type 314 divided by, now remember, because we're dividing by multiplication, we want to go ahead and put those in the parentheses together so that way we can make sure that those numbers are multiplied together. So I'm going to go 25 pi, close that parentheses, hit enter. This right here is our height. So we get 3.997. Let's go ahead and round it to the nearest tenth. This 9 rounds this 9, which rounds this up to a height of 4 inches. So we've seen an example of how to find the volume. We've seen an example of how to find the height. let's go back to finding the volume, but this time we're going to take a word problem, because we're going to see several times throughout that we're going to have word problems that have to do with the volume. And my big key and big thing I always want you guys to know is no matter what, you always need to draw a picture. So we know that we have a can of beans. Okay? Now it doesn't say anything about the shape, but we know that a can, if you think about a can of food, it's always shaped in the form of a cylinder. Okay? So we know that this can of beans is 4.5 inches high. So we're talking about height. So we know that 4.5 is our height. We have a diameter of 3 inches. So remember, that's all the way across, and our diameter is 3 inches. We need to find the volume of the can to the nearest tenth. Right here, look, use 3.14 for pi. So instead of pi, we're going to use 3.14. So going back to our formula, volume equals big BH. We know that we have a cylinder, big B's area of the base. We have a base circle, so we're going to substitute big B for pi r squared times h. Now let's go ahead and substitute. We're looking for volume. We are going to use 3.14 for pi because it told us to up here. Our radius, so they gave us a diameter of 3. To get the radius, you divide by 2, so 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So we have 1.5 squared times our height of 4.5. Now we can take this one piece at a time, but I'm just going to go ahead and plug and chug. So I'm going to go 3.14 times 1.5 squared times 4.5. And that gives us a volume of 31. We're going to go ahead and round it. It tells us to go to the nearest tenth. So this 7, that 9 rounds to 7 to an 8. So 31.8 inches cubed. Alright guys, that's all I have for you about finding the volume of a cylinder. If you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll come and help you. If not, make sure you've written this down in your journal. Go ahead and glue this to page 21 in your journal, and then move on to your practice and quiz.